Welcome Taurus, your in-depth monthly horoscope for June 2024 for the Ascendant, the Sun or the Moon. On the screen now I'm showing the event chart right at the start of the month, which gives us some important clues of how things are going to unfold for you this month. Now we need to be mindful of the planets in your sign, which is Uranus and Mercury, but also your ruler Venus. Let's look at Venus first of all. She's going to be very close to the Sun through the first 2 weeks of this month, and that could be really exciting. That also threads into the new moon, which occurs on the 6th. It's very tight to the new moon. The new moon is when the Sun and the moon are unified, and therefore the best of each's energies are coming together. The moon in Gemini is not such an emotional creature. It's a bit detached. But because the second house energy for you is very much in keeping with your sign and Venus is your ruler, I feel that some good financial news could shape up over the first half of this month. But Venus isn't just about money, it's also about the appreciation of life's goodnesses and in all its various forms. But if you are someone who has committed to some kind of diet plan earlier in the year, perhaps the New Year's resolutions even, prepare to be seriously tested, because getting together with people and being convivial is a very Gemini thing, and that can be something that really pulls you into the social world. And therefore, if it's quaffing some really nice food and wine, that could be part of the enjoyment for you. But equally, so if you recall, Uranus has been in your sign 4 times since March 2019. You had a brief taste of it in 18 for 5 months, and that forged a tense right angle with Mars in Aquarius. But this combination suggests that if at times it's been very frustrating how unpredictable life has been, just also cast your mind back over those years and think about how your outlook has altered. And it's probably altered in some very valuable ways, particularly around really marking out the things that you won't give way on in terms of maintaining your individual spirit. It's important for all of us at times to give and take, flex into other people's needs. That's part of human interaction and creates society. But if we give up our sense of identity to such a degree, we spend all of the time people pleasing or conforming to exactly what we think people expect, in some ways we're eroding our potential. So this combination of Uranus and Mercury is saying to you, if you've got unique ideas, believe in them, because you could find ways not necessarily just to monetize them with the gathering of energy in Gemini this month, but more about feeling enriched by them. Firm up your sense of self-worth, because your sign is very much about that. Venus isn't just about the money, it isn't just about romance, it isn't just the planet of peace or the planet of agriculture or the planet of relating, it is the planet of self-worth. So going back in a circle, the first 2 weeks of this month is glorying your ruler Venus, but also urging you to showcase what makes you unique and individual. But also you can see in house 11 we do have 3 players still. Saturn, which has been perhaps a little challenging over the last year. There may have been some people that you thought were long-term fixtures in your life who actually have made way. Maybe you've become more discriminating about who you want to link with. Maybe you've changed your mind about a long-term plan that previously you'd been adhering to. But that's what happens with life. Sometimes as we get to the summit, we look down over the mountain range and think, do you know, this is good. I'm pleased I've done this. But actually my perspective, my life experience is altered, and I now want to aspire to something else. And Saturn may have brought some of those lessons to you over the last year. But you can see the Moon and Neptune are very close together. If you do have a friend or you're connected to somebody who is very idealistic but also has a very enlightened worldview, they could be very important to you this month. But if there is somebody that you're impressed by, inspired by, it's also important that they're delivering messages to you that are in some ways going to give you some tangible outcomes. In other words, just be a little bit cautious of being attracted to someone who comes out of a particularly mystical way of living your life that may sound in principle very positive and very uplifting, and it could be, but I feel for you it needs to have some practical dimension too. Otherwise, you could get caught up chasing something that always is a little bit elusive. But then let's look at house 12, because this is really important. House 12 and Mars, especially being very close to Chiron at the start of this month, that can arouse some of your insecurities, particularly if you don't feel heard or seen. But also Mars has a tendency in the 12th house to stir up stuff that we thought was settled. And sometimes our emotions can be rather up and down. Issues that we feel very deeply about can be triggered, but they may not be always issues that we were conscious of. The 12th house has a tendency to do that. Then again, past disappointments, hurts, accidents, rejections, or where people have been unjust can suddenly take on more energy as well. And if you feel particularly that people are not valuing you in your emotional input as much as they could, with Chiron being so close, it could make you angry at times. But the good news, Taurus, is that Mars is going to be moving into your sign on the 9th. Mars is going to give you more thrust. You're going to move into the moment. Some of the anxieties that Mars can trigger in the 12th house will make way. But because you've got that very tender set of influences in your 11th house, friendships and future hopes, your long-term plan, it's important perhaps to clear up some outstanding stuff. The leftover energy, which is manifested in house 12, including the North Node, of course. Now, the North Node, the true North Node, is going to move on the 11th of January 2025 into your 11th house, which will be really good for you. I don't think the North Node since July 2023 has always been particularly easy for you. It's pulling you sometimes towards looking at some tender, emotional, perhaps psychological matters that may, if you've embraced them and faced them head on, have been extremely valuable. But if you're someone who's not really wanted to look at those, somehow or another life may have kept taking you back to your vulnerabilities. But that's the big picture at the start of this month. So we have a lot of activity in the sign of Gemini, which is very sociable, quick moving messages, exciting. We have Jupiter there, which is about hope and growth. It could transform your financial picture in the following year, but we also need to be aware that Jupiter can overpromise and underdeliver. With Jupiter, we need to work really hard, not fall into the trap of just thinking, oh, Jupiter is in my second house, everything is going to come up roses in the following year. Did the global economy glow up as Jupiter was moving through Taurus, the sign which rules money? No, it didn't. And that's why we have to be realistic. But if you work hard, the fact that Jupiter is aligning with Pluto right at the top of your chart and could therefore be argued to be the most influential player at the start of this month, it's saying that there can be big shifts around your career, but also big shifts around how you earn money, but also big shifts about your values, or big shifts about how you view yourself, your own self-worth. But don't be surprised if you find yourself interacting with some very influential people as this month kicks off. And Jupiter is going to be aligning to Pluto through the first 11 days within 3 degrees. And this is the first time they forged this alliance across these two signs for over 220 years. So it's extraordinarily rare. Of course, they're both air signs, so communication is very important. Your ideas are important. But what I love about Taurus people, you're always looking to convert it back to, well, what's the meaning of what I'm doing? What's the tangible benefit? And that's a great gift you've got. And with Uranus and Mercury in that sparky a little bit edgy influence at the start of the month. It suggests that you're going to want to speak out and express your view in an authentic way, and some of it could come from the depths with Mars's help. But initially, as you go into this month, it's a lot about perhaps converting some of the ideas, the individualism, the changes that you've been driving with Uranus's help, Pluto's help, over the last 5 years with Uranus and since 2008 with Pluto, to widen your horizons, to travel, learn more, download information, teach and train, inform. It's all been incredibly thrilling for you. But earlier this year, because we had such a clustering of energy in house 12, including the total solar eclipse, you may have been asking some big questions about where you sat within all of this excitement, but perhaps restless vibe. Now you can start to really pick through what's really worth something to you. But it is going to be tested potentially in week 2 of this month, because although the Sun aligning with Venus is so valuable, and Mercury moves into Gemini, it's one of its 2 home signs on the 3rd, links with Jupiter. You know, if you're wanting to earn some money, if you agree to a contract or a deal around then, could be really, really good for you. The 6th, we have the new moon, very close to Venus. Charm will get you everywhere, you know that. But also you have your more sensuous appreciation of life. It can be through splashing out some money on some luxury items, but it also can be your appreciation of what's more aesthetic, you know, atmospheres. It's not necessarily the furniture in a building, it's the light in the building. It's maybe the strip beams, it's the, you know, the exposed bricks or stone. So that awareness to those things is really going to be enriched for you in the early part of this month, which takes us to week 2. And then Saturn starts to apply its much more gritty influence. Yes, it squares up with the Sun and also with Venus. So if something, you know, if you have found that it's very hard to resist calorifically loaded foods, Saturn will remind you that this has an outcome. If there is someone that you find irresistible in a more seductive and intimate sense, 2nd house, Jupiter finds it hard to say no. Jupiter and Venus, the 2 planets of plenty, both in your 2nd house. It's not just food that may be hard to turn down, it could be someone's advances. But Saturn's saying what's right for you in terms of your higher principles. If you're caught up in chasing the money, or caught up in chasing what's instantly desirable, it may be taking you away from something that's purer for you personally. It depends on what type of life you're leading and what you want. If you want to be all in, with enjoying things to the max, not worrying too much about the outcome, you know, if there is someone you can connect to and they're at the same part of their life as you, and it is very, very, very hot, great. But Saturn's saying in week 2, look, there's going to be a potential outcome if you're too extravagant and get away from what's really important to you. But there are always things moving in astrology, and Mars moves into your sign on the 9th. I love Mars moving into your sign, Taurus, because Mars moving through the 12th house, you know, as it does, those 6 weeks, it can really be quite trying. But Mars moving into your own sign nominally will bring you into the moment. It makes you more aware of your need to stay in touch with your individual needs and your ego, which of course Mercury and Uranus were doing at the start of the month. But Mars moving here immediately clashes with Pluto. And this is a really heavyweight clash. These are the 2 rulers of your opposite sign of Scorpio. Mars is about that need for instant gratification, being assertive, feisty at times, certainly about initiating things. If something has felt a bit blocked with Mars in the 12th, moving into your own sign, you're going to want to take your power back, put a firmer grip on that life tiller. But Pluto at the top of your chart is saying you've got to interact potentially with someone you may not necessarily want to deal with. This could be a boss. It could be an influential family member. It could be your partner. They've got a different worldview. It may be a bit more conservative, or they may be thinking, look, if Mars moving into your sign and augmenting, not in a conjunction, but the overall energy that Uranus has been stirring up in recent years, it's just saying to you, don't charge in too quickly. You need to think about any actions you take will have an outcome. And someone could experience you as being a little bit hard to be around in some ways, not in terms of your personality, it's more your aura, particularly if you're wanting to strut your stuff. And it could be like a power battle, not necessarily a spoken one. Pluto often keeps stuff out of sight. But you may need to deal with someone and they may have some leverage over you, but you may have ideas and skills and talents which are valuable to them, but they may want you to conform to what they want rather than what you'd ideally like. So a bit of give and take is going to be necessary. But generally, in terms of your physical vitality and your psychology, Mars moving into your own sign is good, good, good. 14th to the 16th, your ruler Venus is met by Mercury. This is really good for money, and especially deals, trade, but also maybe that you're going to grab yourself a nice bargain, whether it is that touch of luxe or it is something more, getting something from a reclamation yard that's got great value in terms of how it looks and its historical value to you. Could be something you can snaffle then, just depends on your unique life story. But the 17th does see them both move into Cancer. Now, Cancer, the host, is about feelings, isn't it? It's ruled by the moon, but it's also about security. But for you, the third house is about how you express ideas. But the 20th is the summer solstice. The sun shifts into Cancer to join up with that duo. What a great trio to have in Cancer for you, because you're an earth sign, so you carry water. You conduct water very well. As the air sign of Gemini is great for the exchange of ideas if you're ready to exchange them, and could be good for improving your finances. Certainly will be very good for enjoying the good things of life. The move of Venus, Mercury and the Sun all into Cancer shifts the dimension more to interaction, but it's interaction with emotion that you're looking for here. And it provides a backdrop for the next 13 weeks, because the summer solstice really triggers cardinal quadrant 2. So the Western tropical astrological calendar starts with the spring equinox. That brings in cardinal quadrant 1. That's about the new start, Aries, thrust, excitement, very much like the ascendant in our natal chart. But the fourth house is the sleep point in our natal charts. It's where we reflect. But for you, it's house 3, so things are speeding up. But speeding up about where you live potentially, or feeling comfortable in your environment. But then on the 22nd, we have a full moon. The sun and the moon are in a squabble, essentially. They're opposing each other. They have very different energies. They're not integrated. And it just so happens the moon's in its least favourite zodiac sign of Capricorn. But for you, that's house 9. That's about the big picture, travel, higher education, being more impulsive, perhaps more spontaneous. The third house is the everyday conversation. You might want to be a little bit more daring. Someone close to you may be more mindful of the security aspect of the Cancerian energy. And then Saturn, that great manager of our time, goes into a retrograde for 20 weeks through to the 15th of November on the 29th of this month. So you can see that part of your situation that's to do with your future is under a lot of discussion as this month comes to a close. So it's very sensual at the start of this month, Taurus. You're going to really appreciate it because Venus is so much in the mix, because Jupiter's so much in the mix. If you have been going through a period of being abstemious, very self-disciplined, trying to lose weight, perhaps being very cautious with your resources, you may be surprised by how you get back into some of your core Tauran behavior in a way that you're really happy with. But as the month draws to a close, your mind switching on, third house, the moon, ninth house, how your higher philosophies are influencing what you're doing. And with Saturn going retrograde in another water sign of Pisces, it's the conversation you have at the end of this month is shaking things out, because the conversations have to be about how it feels, Cancer, but it also has to stimulate you. So what an exciting, thrilling, incredible month. And I should just say, actually, from the 17th to the 20th, that the Sun's squaring up with Neptune in Pisces. So once more, there can be an amplification, but this time, where's Saturn in your 11th house squaring up with the Sun and Venus in your second house, may mean that you're more conscious of your finances or your values not meshing with someone that you have been associated with or have been friendly with. But then Neptune gets in the mix across the 17th to 20th. There could be the potential for someone being a bit tricky and not very honest about resources. So just be aware of that too. So the end of this month, you're analysing all this enjoyment, this high, what do they call it, full fat. It's a full fat month at the start of this month, for the first 2/3 of this month, Taurus. But when you get to the end of it, it doesn't mean to say you have to be on fully skimmed, but I feel that you're just trying to work out what it all means. But I definitely don't think this month is going to be dull. I think it's going to be very intriguing for you, and of all the zodiac signs, because it's a very Tauran kind of month, weirdly, despite the Gemini slant of the quick communications. For you, it's going to be a month where you can really get in contact with the things that really mean a lot to you, your values, what you enjoy, what your foundations are based upon. You can look to spoil yourself a little bit or be a bit thriftier. It depends on your choice. Saturn may push you to be a bit thriftier, for sure, but you can also become much more conscious of where your values or your worth are not appreciated by some of the people you're connecting with. But by the end of the month, you're resetting your intellectual and communicational output to all these events, but based on how it feels. It's been a real pleasure being with you. Thank you so much for joining me. If you've yet to subscribe to my channel, please do so. And remember to check out my very special personal astrology offer by seeing the link beneath this video.